Now, rhythms can be broken up in a lot of different ways. We already kind of have an idea of what the different rhythms that I'm talking about, at least for in this tutorial. So let me give you an example here. Come on, pen. Oops. Sorry. Here we go. So we have, let's say, a quarter note, and then 2/8 notes, quarter note, and let's say 2/8 notes. You can play this on a chord, you can play it on one note, one string, doesn't matter. You can do it a lot of different ways. So here's what it looks like. Downstroke, down, up, down, down, up. This would be beat 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. Now there's some ands missing here. It's because we're not playing eighth notes on that beats 1 or beat 3. We're playing quarter notes there. So it's kind of, now we're mixing some of these rhythms up. This one sounds like this. I'll clap out the rhythm and I'll count along. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. So strumming wise, it would go down, down, up, down, down, up, down, just like that. And so what I sometimes do though, even though we don't play an and here, there's nothing played right here, or there's no and right here, I a lot of times will still say that or count that just to make it consistent. So in my own mind, this is what's happening, is constant eighth notes. Like this. So I'm always thinking, even though I'm playing a mixture, I'm always thinking of what is the lowest kind of common denominator of the rhythm. 3 and 4 and. If it was 16th notes, if there was a 16th note somewhere in this pattern, it would be 16th notes that I'm thinking. So even if I'm playing quarter notes on the first 2 beats and then 16th notes on the last 2 beats, I'm thinking 16th note subdivisions all the way through. 1E and to 2E and to 3E and to 4E and to 1E and to 2E and to 3E and to 4E and to 1. That keeps everything consistent, and I'm just kind of grabbing rhythms out of the subdivisions that I need. So let me go back to this 8th note and give you another little way of thinking about it. Let me use a different color here. How about, let's see, I'll use a blue here. So if I'm counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down here, I may grab this one, I may grab this one, I may grab this one, and let's say this one here. This is a good way to even write music. You can just literally randomly circle some of these rhythms and then see if you can play it, and you can come up with a cool little rhythmic riff for a song. So what that sounds like, so if I just clap on the blue circles there, it would sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Just like that. And you can, as you can see, you can slice and dice this however you want. If I get rid of these circles, I can go, let me just give you one more example. I'll do on beat 2, and I'll do it on and of 3 and 4. Sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Just like that. So this also has to translate. So we do that, but it also has to translate into music notation, because you can't just write this out and circle what you want. Most musicians wouldn't really quite understand what you're doing. It would look a little confusing. So let's say, how would that translate? Well, let's take a look at that. So on this first beat here, we don't have anything. So we have to kind of notate. We have to notate that. So what would that look like? That would be a rest. Quarter note rest. Oops. I'm horrible at these, so bear with me. Looks like this. I'll try to do it better. I'm almost embarrassed to do that. It kind of looks like that. I know it's horrible. You're like, what is that? It looks like a squiggly line. That's quarter note rest. This is an 8th note rest. So just as we have symbols for sound, we also have symbols for silence, or what we call rest. So let me just kind of get back into this. This represents silence for this first beat here. Then we have this hit here, which is an 8th note. Oh, and sometimes I get this. Somebody will ask me, well, does it matter which direction this stem goes? Absolutely not. It doesn't make any difference in the rhythm. It's just a pure visual thing. So don't get confused by that. It can go in any direction. As long as you have a stem and a little flag hanging off to it, it's always going to be an eighth note. So now we have this rhythm here, but then we have nothing on this spot right here. So we need to create a silence and or rest, so it would look like this. So we have an eighth note rest now. Then we all have another eighth note rest on beat 3, so we need to add another one in there. And then we have to play an eighth note for the end of 3 and an eighth note for the end of 4, and then another eighth note rest. So this all looks like notes, kind of looks a little unorganized. Let me just kind of clear some space here. But here's our beats. Here's beat 1, here's beats 2, here's beats 3, beat 4. So you can kind of see how they're lining up here. Just like that. Whoops. If I put in the counts, it'd be like this, or the ands, I should say. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just like that. So yeah, sometimes I even write in the counts if it's a really difficult rhythmic phrase or it's hard to read. I will literally put these little counts underneath it just to kind of line the notes up to where I need to play. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to play something on 2, I need to play something on the end of 3 and 4 on that location there. Let's do one more little example. Let's do another one. Let's see. How about if we go, I'm going to do this. Here's another measure of all eighth notes. We're just going to circle ones that we want. I'll use my blue one again. I like that. Here we go. So let's say I play here. Oops, that's a dark blue. And I want this note, I don't want to rest here. I want it to carry over. So that would equal a quarter note for that one beat here. And then I want to come in here and I want to play this one, and I want this to extend to that note there. And then we have beat 4 here. I'm going to leave that out. So we have a quarter note and then an eighth note rest, an eighth note, and a quarter note. And then this last one, I want to rest on this one. So we're going to have another one of those quarter note rest here. So that's what this rhythmic notation looks like. We have 1, rest on 2, and 3, rest on 4. Again, you can add the ands in there, but you just have to know where you got to be playing. So what this sounds like is this: 1, 2, and 3, rest. 1, 2, and 3, rest. Just like that. Now there's another thing that I haven't talked about. 2 things: dots and ties and rhythm. Woo, what is that? Sounds like a board game. All right, let me get rid of that. Go back to that. So let's take a look at the same thing. What if I wanted this first note here to hang all the way for these first 3 eighth notes here? What I could do is I can go like this. I can create a quarter note for this first beat, and I can create another group of eighth notes here. And then what I can do is I can put this little line above it. This is what we call a tie. And it's kind of like connecting. I think of it as a plus sign. It's connecting those 2 notes. So the way that sounds is I would be da, dot. That's the next rhythm that would come in there. And I can put ties in a lot of different locations because there's no rhythmic symbol for that duration. So we start to use these other little symbols to help kind of to designate or show what that rhythm would sound like. So here's the rest of this is going to be quarter note, but let's say I'll put another one of these in here. Let's say I wanted to tie over into this one. Same thing. I could put another tie like that. Creating a different, now this one sounds like this. We have to hold it so it's da, 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 to da, da. And it does sound different than going da, rest, da, da, rest, da, da, rest. instead of how it's written would sound like this, da, 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 that kind of thing. So it's subtle, but there is a difference in it, and we need to make sure that we are playing the right rhythms for that. So that's a tie. Another way to do this is to not use a tie, but to use a dot. You'll see this a lot in music. Let me just write that again. I just want to make it a little more clear. So we have our quarter note, and a dot could be applied to any rhythmic symbol. What it means is we take the value of itself, which in this case is a quarter note, and then we're going to extend that value by half of itself. And half of itself is an eighth note. Because if you remember, a quarter note can be broken into 2 eighth notes, like that. It's basically, it's like a tie. It's a simple way of writing a tie. So if what we had originally was this tied over, right? But if I don't want to do that, I could use, let me get rid of this real quick, a dot. It looks like this. Now, the dots can be hard to read because now we have this rhythmic phrase here. And it's hard to see where beat 2 is in all this. So here's beat 1. Beat 2 is kind of somewhere in there. And 3, 4, and. So that's what's tricky about these dots. It's sometimes hard to see where the beats are lining. Whereas if I used a tie, it's a little easier to spot it. And let me show you what I mean by that. So if I draw this, let me just get rid of some of this down here. So here's the 2 eighth notes connected here. If I tie that over, we can really see where beat 2 is here. Even though we're not playing it there, we can see where that is. So sometimes I prefer the ties because they just kind of help visually represent, or you can see again where those beats are being located. So, so there's a lot of different ways to do it. But the dots, just remember, we're taking a note like a quarter note. Could be an eighth note, same thing. If it was, actually, let me give you that example. If we're doing an eighth note, put a dot to that, that is the same thing as putting a tie with an eighth note and a 16th note together like that. I kind of think of it as a plus sign. You just have to know what you're adding to that particular note value. All right, so I'm about done with some of this. I'm going to get into some other tutorials where we're actually going to get our hands dirty with our guitar and kind of really work with these rhythms. And I'm going to give you guys some rhythm sheets and things like that. So hopefully this sets the stage. I know there may be a few little questions and you may be a little bit confused, and when I try to be as thorough as I can, but I think it'll start to sink in when you start to actually get your hands dirty and actually start to play some of these. All right, so I'll do that in the next tutorials for that. So anyway, hopefully this helped. If you have questions, please let me know. Make a comment below, and I'll be happy to reply to you guys. So anyway, there you go. Enjoy. Have a nice day, week, month, whatever it is. I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye.